He did not threaten me. He did not fire me. He begged me. And that one word from Alexander Cross undid 2 years of careful distance in about 3 seconds. Please. Please do not tell anyone you were here. I had never heard Alexander Cross say please. Not to a client. Not to a board member. Not to anyone. And standing there in the elevator doorway, watching this man who once restructured an entire company's leadership team over a single bad quarter without blinking, watching him look at me with that raw, open fear. I said the only thing I could think to say. I won't. Just like that. No negotiation. No conditions. I do not fully know why. Maybe it was the smell of whatever was on that stove. Maybe it was the throw blankets on the couch. Maybe it was the way the young man in the wheelchair was watching us both with those wide gray eyes that were so much like his brother's, and I could see him bracing himself, already preparing for something bad. I was not going to be something bad for that kid. I decided that in about half a second. Alexander stared at me for a long moment. Then something shifted in his face, not quite relief, more like a man who has been holding his breath for years and just remembered he is allowed to exhale. This is Eli, he said. His voice was different. Quieter. The boardroom edge was completely gone. My brother. Eli raised his bowl at me. He was losing the argument about whether this risotto needed more Parmesan, he announced. I was winning. You can be the tiebreaker. I laughed. I could not help it. And I watched Alexander Cross, the most feared CEO in Manhattan, close his eyes briefly, like his 19-year-old brother was simultaneously the best and most exhausting thing in his universe. It needs more Parmesan, I said. Eli pointed at me. I like her. That was how I ended up eating risotto on the penthouse floor on a Tuesday night. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned more about Alexander Cross than I had in the previous 2 years combined. Eli has a condition called spinal muscular atrophy. He has had it since he was a toddler. He uses a wheelchair full-time now, and he has a physical therapist who comes 3 mornings a week, but Alexander does the evening exercises with him himself. Every night. I saw it for the first time on my 3rd visit up to the penthouse, when I came to drop off some urgent documents Alexander had asked me to bring directly rather than send through the courier. I told myself that was the only reason I kept coming back. The documents. The work reasons. I was lying to myself, obviously. That 3rd evening, Alexander had his sleeves rolled up again, kneeling on the floor beside Eli's chair, moving through a series of gentle resistance exercises that the therapist had prescribed. He was counting quietly, encouraging Eli through each one with a patience and steadiness I had genuinely never associated with him. Eli was making jokes the entire time to mask how hard he was working. And Alexander just let him. Laughed at the bad ones. Kept counting. I stood in the kitchen pretending to organize the files I had brought, and I felt something crack open in my chest that I was not entirely sure I could close again. Here is what I pieced together over those 2 weeks, from fragments of conversation and the things Alexander did not say as much as the things he did. Eli was supposed to be in their father's care. Victor Cross, I had heard the name in whispered tones around the office, always accompanied by a particular kind of tension, had made it clear when the boys were young that Eli was a liability. An embarrassment. A weakness in the family's public image. Victor had wanted to place Eli in a facility. Out of sight. Out of the narrative. Alexander had been 22 years old when he walked into his father's office, handed over his trust fund as collateral, and told Victor that if he ever tried to institutionalize Eli, he would go to every financial journalist he knew with everything he had learned growing up in that house. At 22. He had been 22 years old. He built his entire career, the ruthlessness, the reputation, the iron control, as a shield. The more powerful he became, the safer Eli was. The more feared he was in every boardroom, the less anyone dared to look too closely at what was on the 42nd floor. Every cold decision I had ever watched him make. Every late night. Every wall. It was all armor. And underneath it was a man who cooked risotto and counted physical therapy reps and read to his brother. I found that out about the reading by accident too. I came up one evening later than usual. The lights in the main living space were low. I could hear Alexander's voice from the hallway near the bedrooms, low and steady, reading aloud. I caught a few sentences before I realized what I was hearing. It was a Terry Pratchett novel. Eli had apparently decided Alexander needed to experience it, and Alexander, for all his power and authority, was sitting on the edge of his brother's bed reading it out loud without a single complaint. I sat down on the couch in the living room and waited, and I did not tell him I had heard. But something about the way he looked when he came back out, that quiet, undefended look, made me understand that I was already in trouble. because I was starting to fall for a man who did not know how to let anyone in. And I was starting to think he might be letting me in anyway. He sat down across from me that night and, for the first time in 2 years, asked me something that had nothing to do with work. He asked me why I stayed. Not just that evening but in general. Why I had never left, never transferred, never taken the offers from other firms I thought he did not know about. And I realized I did not have a safe answer. Not anymore. Stay tuned for the next part.